Okay, recording has started. Good evening, everybody. I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks in here other than the speaker and the timer. And I do appreciate you being here, and I apologize for being late, but let's dive right into it. I was wondering if everyone could take a quick moment and in the breakout room chat, if we have one, indicate what their experience is with VPE. Is this your first time around? Do you feel like you know everything? Something in between?
Hi, my name is Paul Hardison. This is my first time as a VPE.
All right. We've got enough we could speak. Bob, what's your general experience?
I don't have a lot of experience with the VPE. I've been to VPE before, but to be honest, I could probably use a refresher on how to
All right, thank you, Bob.
do
Julie.
that better.
Julie, what's your experience?
Hi there, Mark. I am brand new to Toastmasters, and I am brand new to being the VPE.
Okay, not the first time I've heard that.
So I'm your trouble child this evening.
That's okay. Ritika?
Good evening. This is my first time being VPE. I've been a VP of membership last year. This is my first time being VPE.
Okay, and Amy?
Hello, Mark. This is Amy Wang from RX Toastmasters. I have been the VPE several times. I'm just a recycled officer. However, I still don't know everything. Thank you for your session.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you, Amy, for giving us a segue into my first point, which is that you can never know it all. It is a very large role. And it's always great that if you do cycle back and become VP again, to take a training. And that's why I'm so glad that you're here. A little bit about myself. I've been a Toastmaster for 6 years. I'm a member of 2 clubs in the Durham area, Blue Devil Toastmasters and Practically Speaking, which is at the Pratt School of Engineering at Duke University. And I have served as president, VPE, and a club coach. And new this year, I'm a vice president of membership for my Practically Speaking club. And when I'm not doing this and not with my family in Raleigh, I host a classical music radio show. The agenda today, we're going to talk about the VPE in perhaps a little bit different way than you've heard it before. And that is in 3 ways: the role in the meeting experience, the role in ensuring member success, and the role in ensuring club success. And then we'll have some time, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of time, to discuss tips, tricks, and best practices, especially for those folks that mentioned that they had some experience. One thing that I've always found valuable is that everybody has something. They have some lesson that they've learned, some little efficiency or trick that they've learned, and those are always great to share. And as Amy will probably agree, you pick those up all the time. You can't learn it all. So let's just dive right in. Objectives today, I would think we'd have a successful presentation if each of you could go away today understanding the basics of the VPE role, understand how the VPE contributes to club and member success, and that each of you take home at least one actionable idea that you could do in your own experience and in your own clubs. I've already kind of done this where we've talked about your experience, and we see, like we normally have, a variety of experience from absolutely brand new to I've done it a few times. Right now, what you're seeing on your share screen is the official definition of the Vice President Education role as it appears in the Constitution and bylaws. And I will read this one. The Vice President Education is the second ranking club officer and is responsible for planning, organizing, and directing a club program which meets the educational needs of the individual members. And you can see the words that I have highlighted there. That emphasis is mine: planning, organizing, and directing. That sounds like 3 jobs, 3 roles, not 1. And that's pretty much the essence of the Vice President Education job. It is integrated in almost everything the club does, and it is a large and expansive and detailed role. But don't be deterred. we're going to talk about ways to tackle it. Here's the official new Toastmaster t-shirt. I'm the chief cook and bottle washer, and I solve problems you don't know you have in ways you can't understand. To me, this sort of summarizes the role as well. In a functioning club, everybody knows the vice president of education. The vice president of education and the people around that person touch every member all the time. And there's a lot of ins and outs. And again, don't be discouraged. I want to ask you, and we can do this live. There's only a few of us in this group, and please feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. Which do you think is most true? Successful members make successful meetings, or successful meetings make successful members? Anybody like to answer that question with their own opinion? It's an opinion. There's not a right or wrong answer.
I think it's a B.
B, successful meetings make successful members. Anyone else have a thought?
I would lean towards A just because I'm a people person, and I believe that the type of people that are going to be joining the program are already successful people. We're just helping them hone their skills and, encouraging them to participate in the meetings in a way that leads to a successful meeting.
Okay, thank you. Hi, any other opinions that folks
I am leaning towards B because I think if the meetings are a disaster, we will not have members coming to the meeting at all.
Right. Well,
I would
thank you.
actually
Yeah,
see
you've got
both.
a good mix here. This is Bob. I think it's a combination of both, but I think to me it's more A.
Okay.
I get really energized people in the room. Something good's going to happen.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Let me tell you how I think about it, which is much like what all of you have said. To me, I see it as a cycle. And this comes from my experience as a club coach. If you might have a club that's going through a challenging period, one of the first things that you can hold on to and might tackle is the meeting experience. And what improvements in the meeting experience can do is improve the experience for members, who then respond by doing their part to make the club better. And their work making the club better naturally makes the meetings better. And it creates, hopefully, a virtuous cycle, not a vicious one, but a virtuous cycle. And that, yes, you could say you need both parts, but what I'm trying to say is when a VPE looks at things to do in their club, ways to find improvement, handholds for concrete things that you can do, one place to look is the meeting experience, because if it works out, it will improve members, and the members hopefully should feed that back by improving the club. So in a sense, they're both right, of course. Oops. Everybody knows the ideal meeting experience, right? All the roles are filled ahead of time. There are speakers. There's great table topics, awesome evaluations, exciting contests, impressed guests, and it all just pops at the moment that the meeting is supposed to start. And the clubs I belong to, this can be a real struggle. Members have their lives. And of course, everything requires a little bit of planning. And that's the VPE's role when it comes to meeting preparation, is to prime that pump, to get some of the pieces ready and deployed, so that when meeting day comes, that that things fall together, and they appear to fall together naturally. But of course, not. It's because of your effort and the effort of the people that you're leading. And so, one thing to think about would be to go back to your club, assess the meeting experience, and see what could be improved. All right, let me, I've got a brand new mouse. And so my suggestion to you is, as a brand new VPE, take an opportunity now, get organized to get an advantage. And by this, I mean, take a look at all the members in your club, Make sure that you're checking Club Central on Toastmasters.org. Make sure that you understand how to get into the VPE functions of your club website. Understand who's on your roster. Understand where they are in the education program. Try to get an idea of what folks' goals are, but get organized. Just understand what's going on in the club in terms of the educational program. Use the tools to increase efficiency, and the major tools I use are our own club website, which we use a Toast host website, which is very common, to organize meetings, to communicate with members, and to communicate with guests. Very quickly, how many here actively use the Toast host website to organize their meetings? And this may be more true now with everyone meeting virtually. Even by a show of hands, if you're on camera, how many are using Toast host, where you've got the online agenda and email reminders and so forth? If you're not, you're missing out on a great tool. Make sure you've got access to the innards of your Toast host website and look at how you can build an agenda and you can get the other members of your club to help you do it. Toast host will allow you to send emails to every member automatically with the agenda, with buttons that they can click for the roles that they can sign up for. They're adding features to it all the time. One of the newer features the last several months is that when a member signs up for a speech, here's a tip for you. It provides a link to the PDF document of the evaluation. Use the tools to help you become more efficient. And then my third.
What's that called again? Is it the Toast host?
Toast host. And these are the websites, for example, my Blue Devil Club is bluedevil.toastmasterclubs.org. They tend to have web addresses in that form, and I'll have more information on that near the end. My third point is one I'll hammer a few more times during this presentation. Recruit help to share the load. Most important thing, and as a leadership lesson, is to not believe that you can do it all yourself. It's a big role. There are a lot of responsibilities. Recruit help. There are members of your club, no doubt, who are interested in what it's like to be an officer or could be made to wonder what it's like. Have assistants. Have people break your role into pieces, and if necessary, find people to assign those pieces to. Save the essential functions for yourself. So when it comes to organizing contests and other large things, find the members who need the credit for organizing events and projects and align that with what the club needs to do. But I would say the primary mistake that VPEs have made that I've seen, and I made myself at first, was believing that I could do it all myself. Recruit help. And then my final one, which is something I've come to recognize just in the last couple of years, is to set goals to make the path clear. There's a lot of things about every club that could be made better, and there's a lot of things that VPEs could do additionally to do their jobs better. But we're not able to do the entire universe of things. Working with your fellow officers, find some concrete goals. After you've assessed what the club needs, set some concrete goals, and then work towards those. This always helps me because I want to know what's possible and what's achievable. I'd suggest going back to your club, in the next officers meeting, when the topic comes to the educational program, ask the officers, what do we want our meetings to be like? Again, thinking about that ideal meeting experience and comparing it to what meetings are today in your club. In what specific ways could we improve our meetings? For example, perhaps the feedback is we should have better table topics, or we should have people who are interested in table topics assess the biggest impact and the quickest win. That's the way I put it. But you can, if you're not familiar with this technique, you can list off all of the potential goals that you could have. Say, hey, getting our agendas done earlier, getting 3 or more speeches scheduled, or 2 or more speeches scheduled, so forth. And then you can score each one by what would make the biggest difference if we accomplished it, say 1 through 5. Would this thing make the biggest difference? And then score it again 1 through 5. What's achievable in the shortest term? What can we do the next meeting or the next few meetings? You add the numbers together, and those goals that approach, they have the highest numbers that approach 10, you do those first because they're going to have the biggest impact and they're the quickest to implement. Then you can work on the ones that take longer. And what I do is I start with 3. Identify 3, including one that might be a stretch goal. And then, of course, on here, to sound really great and inspirational, I say, start tomorrow. Let's change gears a little bit and talk about the role of the VPE in member success. We've talked about in meeting success. Let's talk about the role in member success. This is the one where the VPE, as we saw in the official definition, is responsible for a program in which every member is progressing in pathways, our education program. And how do we know people are progressing? Well, they're achieving milestones. They're earning awards. In the meantime, members are taking a variety of roles in meetings and as officers in the club, and when special opportunities come, like organizing contests, organizing open houses, that kind of thing. And as the program year comes to a close in the spring, members are ready and eager to take on an officer role. The VPE has something to do with all those things. Here are some that I consider essential. New member orientations and pathway enrollment. This goes back to our first point of discussion. Good members contributing, or successful members, or members who are successful in Toastmasters, contributing to club success. And my feeling on that is they have to get off to a great start. They fill out that application, they pay their dues, and they shouldn't be met with waiting or silence or trying to fit in with the culture of the club at the next meeting. Because that person is thinking in their head, what am I to do to get back the value that I paid in dues, the value I'm going to give in time and in my contribution of my leadership and followership? The VPE plays a role in getting them off to a great start. And that comes with new member orientations. I'm very lucky that in one of my clubs, I have a very experienced member who recently retired, and we were just having a casual discussion about what a better job I could do as VPE when she said, you know, I could do a new member orientation. I've got a deck of slides that I did for another thing and another club. And I said, I'm going to take you up on that. So at least for this year, I've got an agreement with a member that when we have new members, they meet with her online as we are today. And she gives all our new members a very short, I think it's 5 or 6 slide presentation. I think the whole thing takes 30 minutes to say, this is Toastmasters. That's how it works. Here's a little bit of its history. And here's what it's like to be a member of our club. And here's the typical cycle of membership, say in a given month. We're signing up for roles online, we're preparing speeches, we're mentoring someone or being mentored. We're keeping an eye on the annual schedule when contests and conventions and meetings come up. And then, of course, you know, we're going to be looking for new officers come the spring. And so just like going to university or school or getting a new job, orientation helps with those first days and gets things started more quickly. And I think it's also a good opportunity to recruit that help. You wouldn't, I think you'll be surprised. There may be members of your club who would love to do it if they were asked. A mentor for every new member. This is something I've come to believe in very strongly. there's some suggestion in some of the Toastmasters paraphernalia, certainly before Pathways, that mentorship was optional or kind of this extra thing. I really do believe every new member should have a member as a buddy. And by that, I mean someone that they know that's at the meeting, that they've been introduced to, someone they can call and say, hey, I'm thinking about being an evaluator next week. What is that all about? A person who can show them the ropes. And that mentorship doesn't have to be a permanent relationship that lasts for years. It could be paired with that orientation period, that break-in period, that acclimation period. And it's about creating a relationship, their first relationship, professional relationship with the club. I think that will help with retention. I think it will also help with membership experience. And it also is part of VPE's role in individual member success. Mentors and proteges both benefit from the relationship. And I can bring up a side note is that there are tools on your Toast Host website to help you manage mentors and proteges. There's a link on the website where people can request a mentor, can request to be a mentor. It sends emails to the listed VPE who can then match people. And there's a lot of great little background functions. Now, here's one you may not have heard of. If two members in your club are registered as mentor and protege in your Toast Host website, and that protege signs up for a role, and then that protege takes away that role, cancels that role, it sends an email to the mentor and says, hey, your protege just took their name off the agenda. And so that mentor can send an email and say, hey, what's going on? And those are all automated things that will help extend your abilities. And again, we'll talk about mini goals. I think this is, again, matches in with mentorship and so forth. This has to do with when you have new members, again, those small achievable goals. Let's take a role the next meeting, even if it's Wordmaster, and work with the members of your club, because I think there are several clubs that have members who are always the Wordmaster. Those roles, Wordmaster, Humorist, keep those available for new members because the low effort that's required. Icebreaker within 2 to 3 meetings. I really believe that the sooner the icebreaker is scheduled, the longer that person will be a committed Toastmaster. And new members become mentors. The idea is that once a new member is acclimated and is progressing, that they should mentor new members, and that this can happen within a calendar year if things are working well. Let's switch gears. We talked about the VPE's role in the meeting and an individual member success. Let's talk about the VPE club success. And my first point, very subtly, it says recognition, recognition, recognition. This has been proven by my experience over and over again. A VPE has a very valuable role in highlighting and thanking contributions and achievements by members, no matter how small. Members should be thanked when they do things for the club, which the president can do, but when they enroll in Pathways, when they give their icebreaker, effusive recognition. In both of my clubs, I started the tradition that when a member gives an icebreaker speech, a true one, their first speech ever in Toastmasters, that person gets a standing ovation. It's a small thing, but it means a lot. There's lots of creative, low-cost ways to push recognition. Recognition tells a member, I'm doing what's good for myself and for the club, and reinforces that behavior. Plus, it's fun. Promptly process awards. When members achieve levels in Pathways, it's incumbent upon the VPE, and this is one thing the VPE must do, is to get those processed through Toastmasters.org, to get them entered and recorded, because people are looking forward to those awards. If you don't know how to do it, and we'll have links later, we have information on how you can understand how to use your access to Toastmasters.org to submit completed awards. Don't let them sit on your desk if you can avoid it. And then contributing to the club success plan. Of course, in other sessions going on right now, your club president is hearing about creating a club success plan and using the template offered by Toastmasters. About a third of that plan or more is on the education program. Which members will get which awards do you think this year? The VP makes a big contribution to that success plan, and so it's incumbent upon you to understand it and to maximize that. In the Distinguished Club program, the point system you may have heard about, 6 of the 10 Distinguished Club goals relate to earning educational awards. Here are my thoughts on the Distinguished Club program. The Distinguished Club program is recognition for clubs that are operating well, that have good cultures, that have members who are succeeding as Toastmasters. I see it as a good measurement of how everything is working. Point systems, you don't do it for the points. You do it for the leadership and for the effect that it has on the members, and the points come. But please know that the education program is the centerpiece of Toastmasters. That's why we're all here, is to learn these skills through the curriculum, to provide the projects that plan the meetings. And so do your best to become familiar with it. It's not a system to be gamed, of course, but it's a really good guide for how the level at which the club should be operating. And it gives goals to strive for. Goals provide clarity as to what we should all do. All right. So that was my summary of how a VPE and their role can contribute to member success, to the meeting experience, and to overall club success. There's a lot more material out there, and I make sure that you get a look at a lot of the materials that Toastmasters makes available, and I'll have links on the screen in just a few minutes. But one of the most valuable publications that I've found is The Toastmaster Wears Many Hats. How many are aware of that publication? Have you ever heard of it? No. A Toastmaster Wears Many Hats. It's a very short, easy to read book that provides bullet list descriptions of every officer role, including VPE. Printed copies, when we go back to meeting in person again, are really helpful and should be requested and can be given to interested guests and new members. But it's available online for free. A Toastmaster Wears Many Hats, and it will help you understand in a little more detailed form the various parts of the VPE. My intention today was to give you some thematic ideas like setting goals, working together as a group to set goals, getting help, and then understanding in broader terms how all this, keeping track of what level people are at and what they'd like to do and how many speeches and projects they'd like to give, all build up to the big point, which is to create members who are successful in Toastmasters. And when we have members who are successful in Toastmasters, we have great clubs. And we have, if we can make a little improvements in the meeting experience, it should improve it for our fellow members, who should then reward the club with greater engagement. So now I'd like to move into tips, tricks, and best practices. I don't know if we have an active meeting chat, and there's a few of us that I think we can kind of talk about it. But if you take a moment and think of maybe some tips and tricks and best practices as VPE, and I will share with you some of mine. My first one is called Start with the Calendar. It can be any calendar, but again, on your Toast Host Club website, there is a calendar function, and some of it works automatically. The calendar can be viewed, it's a 31-day calendar, can be viewed by guests so they can see when meetings and other events are scheduled. Did you know that when you create a new meeting agenda on your website, it automatically puts it on the public calendar? So you don't have to do it twice, just do it once. The other thing is, what I like to do in my club when I'm VPE is I create agendas for every anticipated scheduled meeting out for 1 calendar year. So on our websites, what I like to see is for our members, agendas that people can sign up for from now until next July. People have busy lives. Allow them to plan ahead. Now, of course, you need to have an eye on the district calendar as well. You want to guess when you'd probably want to have your fall speech contest and your spring speech contest. You want to have a meeting where you say, well, this is the first meeting in May. We're going to be picking new officers. But go ahead and create those agendas, even if they're totally blank. They don't have anybody's name on them, but they have roles on them. And what you'll find after you publicize this in the club, people will go in. After you ask them a couple of times, they will go in and they will select roles and schedule speeches even months in advance. Get to know your club website. You've heard me already talk about that. Get to know your club website. Find its functions, learn them, use them to extend your time. Match up mentors. I've discussed that as well. Everybody, new members, should start with a friend. They're waiting to be asked. This is my other tip, which took me a long time. I didn't say it took me a long time to learn. I wish I'd learned it even sooner. There are a lot of folks who won't volunteer unless they're asked. But when they're asked, they jump right into it. And I always thought I was bothering them by asking them. But now I'll say, you know, you would be great in the club Toastmaster 2 meetings from now. And no one yet has told me not to put their name down. They're waiting to be told. One thing I insist, certainly among officers, is officers should be taking meeting roles as long as those they're not crowding out members or new members who want to do. I'm more than happy, as a meeting approaches, to tell officers, I'm putting your name down for X, and you need to tell me if you object. No one's objected. Field trips. One of the most rewarding experiences I've had as a Toastmaster is to visit other clubs. It is amazing within the strict sort of template of a Toastmaster agenda, how much variety and creativity and excitement there are club to club. If you have the opportunity, visit other clubs. I've never gone to another meeting and not come away with a new idea. Visit other clubs when you get the chance, and bring some other members of the club with you. Make it a field trip. All right, that is largely my presentation. And again, the VPE plays a big role in the meeting experience, in the success of members, and in the success of clubs. It's a big job. Recruit help. Don't make that initial mistake of thinking you can do it yourself. And come up with some small or medium-sized, achievable, high-impact goals working with your other officers. Now, I'd like to open the floor if there are folks who will have time for questions, but if folks have thoughts or tips, tricks, or best practices from being VPE, I'd like to hear them. What are your contributions? I'm interested in Amy, if you had any that came off the top of your head.
Okay. In my last term as a VPE, that time we met every Tuesday morning at GlaxoSmithKline. We had a really good meeting room. I used a big chalkboard, made a form with name and progress. People see every time, every Tuesday morning, they will see where you are and where the other people are. That's a really good. As I was listening to you, I was thinking with this virtual meeting, how could I do that again? every time let people see where you are, where the other people are, that really can stimulate people's desire to give talks.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Yes, a chart, and the Toastmasters has a template. There are other clubs that have developed them that are available, shared free online, where on one axis, you've got all of the milestones, various levels of the education program. And then on the other axis, you've got the name of every member in the club. And then you've got a marker, a point that shows at what point in progress is that individual member. These kinds of charts are great. And what they do is they radiate information. Everyone can take a look at it. They're information radiators. And that's another great way to transfer information, to communicate information, and to motivate. Anybody else have any ideas? Best practices, tips, tricks? If not, we can come back to that, but I thought I would now open the floor for your questions. We've talked about a bunch of stuff and done, I could talk for hours and hours about this, and I always feel that I've only scratched the surface, but does anyone have a question?
You said you will send, show us the links.
Yes. There you go. Online resources. The one I point out there is a second link, which is at District 37 in our previous district, Pathways Resources. Members of our current District 117 kind of put it together. That's where it's residing right now. The Pathways A to Z has an enormous amount of easily digestible information put together by fellow Toastmasters, not Pathways programmers, that talk about concrete ways to understand, to accomplish various tasks within Pathways. When a member has a question, or we both come up against something that we're like, how do we make this thing work? I go there, I go to Pathways A to Z, and usually find it. It's an excellent library of materials produced locally. You'll see in the third bullet point, the free Toast Host User's Guide. This is an enormous website that has collected up questions on how Toastmasters Club websites work and questions about that. It's another place to find information. And then the final point is, that's when my radio show is, 7 p.m. most Fridays on the classicalstation.org. That's a shameless plug.
So Mark, we've got quite a bit of time left, 12 minutes. Will you tell the VPEs about BaseCamp Manager?
Sure. And thank you for telling me that, Ruby. And of course, I'll explain to you exactly why we have 12 minutes left. And that's because I put this presentation together the last time I did this, and we had 40 minutes. So today we have 50 minutes. And I'm glad to hear that my timing is still about right. BaseCamp Manager. So I'll explain it the way I understand it, which is not complete. Again, point number 2, Pathways A to Z. There's a lot of information in there about BaseCamp Manager. But Pathways, the whole conceit of Pathways is that every member is on a path. They start at a point and they begin to climb the mountain. BaseCamp is the name given to the VPE's access to that information for all your club members. So when you sign on to toastmasters.org and click on Pathways, you can be sent to BaseCamp. And in BaseCamp, you can then see the Pathways record for each of your members in your club. You can see if they've enrolled, what path they've selected, where they are on the path, which modules they have opened and look at. The other thing you will see in Pathways, and this is becoming more and more important as more projects are rolled out, is the VPE is needed to give permission or is required to review either completion for a level, outside credit. So these are credit for giving talks and doing things in organizations other than Toastmasters. And so you want to become very familiar with Toastmasters BaseCamp and how it works. One note of caution, like a lot of things online today, there are a lot of configurations that you're allowed to make. One thing I noticed my last trip there was that among those configurations was whether I wanted to be notified by email when, for example, I needed to log in and approve something. You want to, if getting a notification by email is important to you, that's how you work. You want to go into BaseCamp, become familiar with its functions, and make sure those configurations, like they are for everything that we join these days, are set up to fit the way you work. Whether you want everything to come by email and then you work your way down your inbox, or you're the kind of person who's like, I've got too many emails. I will check BaseCamp regularly, cut the emails off. So you want to do that. The other thing to talk about in the conceit of Pathways and BaseCamp is that there is something called Navigator. Navigator is all of the documentation for Pathways. These are the written materials that explain on the Toastmasters end how it works. One thing I would note is that because of limitations in the way system documentations were written, was why folks in our district created Pathways A to Z. And so Pathways A to Z, I find to be much more helpful as a how-to when I have a question of how to use Pathways or explain Pathways to members, or to use the BaseCamp where I'm approving things, keeping track of what's going on with each of the members.
Okay. Do you have access to BaseCamp right now that you could show?
Unfortunately, I don't, because I'm not a VPE actively as of July 1st. I don't. But there are shots.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have access right now, but I mean, I don't want to take away from your presentation. You can ask questions if people want to ask other questions, but there is actually at the end of this TLI, there is an optional BaseCamp Manager training for BaseCamp managers, and VPEs are the BaseCamp manager, the secretary and the president are backup BaseCamp managers. So I will be covering a little bit of that, but if you have any questions here that Mark could answer, then
that would be excellent to attend that. First of all, but again, you've got one of the things that's changed the VPE role, recently, is becoming familiar with multiple systems. Your club webpage, the BaseCamp system, or the Pathways and BaseCamp system, and now things like Zoom and virtual meeting. And that can be a very steep learning curve for anyone. And so, again, my humanistic tactic is to lean on my other officers, recruit help, and try to break what goals we have into concrete steps toward a reasonable goal. Are there any other questions? We have a few minutes left.
We still have 5 minutes. Does anybody have, what about the distinguished performance reports? Any of the club reports could we?
Okay, that's an excellent point. Thank you. So distinguished club program, the 10-point system. There are progress reports that are generated by Toastmasters about every week. And when you go into toastmasters.org, then click on your profile, then click on Club Central, you'll see a link to get your club's distinguished club program performance report or scorecard or dashboard. And this lists out the 10 goals and provides information about your progress toward those goals. So for example, one of the goals is to have at least 4 officers trained in the summer and 4 trained in the spring. And for attending this TLI in a few days, you'll see noted on that report how many are given credit for it. And when credit is given and a point is achieved, they give you a little check mark, and it's a thrill to see one because you've earned a point in that program. And then you can see how the program will reward the club for level 1s achieved and 2s, 3s, 4s, distinguished Toastmaster, and so forth. And of course, the year that we're in now is the first year in which the Pathways program is the only educational program. The previous Competent Communicator, Competent Leader program ended on June 30th. So the dashboard is a little cleaner and a little easier to understand. But you'll see all of the goals, including the educational ones, the requirements to recruit new members, to get training, to turn in officer lists, and to turn in club dues renewals. And again, I think it's rewarding to get the distinguished club levels, but they're just a good way of focusing and creating concrete goals to move the club forward. And again, through Toastmasters.org and its section Club Central, which you'll have access to as a Club VPE, you can see that dashboard, see that progress in real time. I don't know what more I can say. There's always a lot more I can say, but I wonder if anyone has any specific questions about their experience in their clubs. I want to make sure that you've been offered that opportunity. All right.
I guess.
Mark, I don't know if anybody has any, this is Bob, by the way, great information. I don't know if anybody else has any experience with this, but when we looked at, we've got a smaller club, and it's a corporate club, so it's closed. We have a bunch of people who really haven't, I know this sounds sad, but I'm going to say it anyways. They haven't gone in and opened their Pathways thing yet. I mean, like 40%, big number.
Yeah.
So I guess, are other people experiencing that too, or is that kind of like really weird? Oh wow, we got 58 seconds. So
yeah,
I'll stop.
That's a great. That is a very good observation, particularly when Pathways started and we saw that. My solution was, of course, I'm working in an academic environment, so it was easy, but we had a Pathways enrollment party. We took 20 minutes of a meeting, everybody brought their laptops, and we all enrolled at the same time. And everybody was there to help each other out and see it. And so it didn't become an individual thing that you had to do on your own time. We took meeting time to do it.
Great idea. Thank you. Really good presentation, by the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here and giving up your time this evening. Thank you, Ruby, for being our timer.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Stop the recording.